How's it going, friends? Welcome to Swim Podcast, episode number 20. The someone who isn't me on this one is singer-songwriter and musician Billy Corgan. I was really excited that this came about because I've been in like an 8-month whirlwind of Smashing Pumpkins obsession, which sort of, I thought, culminated in me getting together with a mate and writing a bunch of songs that are just total Pumpkins worship. But it actually transpired that it culminated in somebody emailing me saying, would you like to speak to Billy for Radio 1, but also for your podcast when he's over in London? And I said, yes, please, that would be wonderful. So Billy was over. He was here to talk about his incredible new album, Ojulala, which came out a few days ago now. He came into Radio 1. We had a great chat for my show where we discussed some of the music that really influenced him into becoming the artist that he is. He had all the anecdotes, which is, it's a fantastic interview actually. Maybe keep an eye on my Twitter because I'll probably post when that's going to air. It won't be for a minute, I don't think, but if you're a Billy Corgan and Pumpkins fan, it's well worth checking out. It was wicked. Then the following day at the RSA there was a screening of his film Pillbox, which he wrote to accompany the album, and the film is great. It's there's loads of amazing symbolism in there. It's quite psychedelic at moments. It's a really beautiful esoteric piece of work, and it accompanies the album fantastically. There was a screening of the film, then there was a short Q&A, and then he played a bunch of acoustic songs from the album, but also from the Smashing Pumpkins back catalogue to about, I guess there must have been like 30 or 40 people there maybe. It was very special, and I was overjoyed to see it. But that day, I actually sat down with him at his hotel and we spoke for an hour or so for this episode. With most of the podcasts, if you're a regular listener, you'll know that there's no real shape to what I want the conversation to be. I'd rather just sit down with somebody and see where we end up. And this episode's a great one for that, I think. I mean, we covered a bunch of stuff. The conversation goes... it covers and occasionally skirts around, I guess, subjects like creativity and music and politics and art and propaganda and aliens and spirituality, etc. And I hope you're going to enjoy it. And I think it's appropriate that this is episode number 20, because if we're going to get into it, and we do very much so in the interview, you might know that 20 is an auspicious number because within the tarot it represents the card Judgment. If you look at that, it's an angelic figure sounding a clarion call, which is kind of pulling the grey, sallow, dead bodies from their graves to a life anew and a life awoken. They're kind of gazing up in awe at a flag-bearing Metatron whilst the seas are raging around them, and it represents reflection and self-evaluation, much the same way as the 20th hexagram in the I Ching, which is Kuan, which represents a need for inner stillness and contemplation to see your role within the world, all of which seems quite relevant to this podcast that you're about to hear. So this is Billy Corgan. Enjoy.
Podcasting or something, there's like the general depth of the dialogue is coming up out of the journalism world more into something that's more like the conversations people really have. Yeah. Which for me as an artist, those are the conversations I want to hear from people I admire. Yeah. Like I actually want to hear like, how did you get there? Don't give me the soundbite answer. Like, we know it's a struggle and it's okay. Yeah. It's like not a big deal. We all go through it, you know?
I think that's the problem though, isn't it? Because the reason I started doing this was because at work, everything's got to be short interviews. Yeah. Can't have a thing longer than this. And I'm like, well, that's great. Mm-hmm. But if... the flip side of that is great that I get to play more music, which at the end of the day is the important thing for a wider reach, I guess. But for me personally, I'd much rather just talk to people about everything, and then you get a feeling of why they make the art they make.
I also think it's more unifying.
Yeah.
You know, I think people are sort of struggling sometimes for like, how do I fit in? And, you know, the great promise of the internet is you're so important. And, you know, working in professional wrestling, you know, what most people don't realize is they're being worked by the tech companies. Oh, of course. They're setting up a system that is reaffirming your bias that you are important and manipulating you to get you to give them something for free, even if it's just data. Yeah. And most people are so happy to go along because they're getting the confirmation that they are important, and they are important, but not at the level they're being presented. It's a manipulation.
Yeah.
And I get sort of offended by the manipulation. And so it's hard if you're a true outlier and you're trying to say to people, like, that's not exactly an accurate picture. And they're saying, sod off because, I've got my phone and I don't need you. It's like, yeah, by the way, you notice what the tech companies use to get you? They use content. It's like they don't just get you on the technology, they get you on the app, they get you on the video, they get you on the cat playing the piano. There's something to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's still a content driven world.
Yeah. It's interesting.
And if they can buy content creation, go ahead and try. It's never worked before.
Yeah.
You can't buy Jimi Hendrix. I mean, you can own his contract, but you can't buy Jimi Hendrix. Yeah. Jimi Hendrix is worth a lot more than what you think he is, and time has proven that again and again, that when you get those people, they should be sort of cocooned and celebrated. Instead, the culture sort of try to strip them of their resources because it's in their best interest to kind of make hay with them. That's why you go read the interviews of like the Stones or Jimi Hendrix from like 1967. They're so stupid and reductionist.
Yeah.
And too bad we don't have these more valuable volumes of material to actually understand what they were going through at the time. So we just end up with the sort of headline clickbait version of like, he lit his hair on fire. It's like, yeah, well, how did he make Purple Haze? I mean, I'd like to read a book on how he made Purple Haze, not the little cute story in the studio.
Yeah. But then those things, they're indefinable anyway, aren't they? Like great art is...
As Flood used to say, one man's meat is another man's snare drum.
Amazing. He's a wonderful man.
He is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's interesting as well, you saying that, because it just seems that everybody is so enamored with all the latest technology and everything that comes with that they don't even realize that like you said, the internet is this thing that should be, it's such an amazing opportunity to unify everything. Well, all resources at your fingertips, and you want to look at cats playing pianos, which is fine because I like to look at those things too once in a while. But
that's the age-old thing, right? Like, why does America have an electoral college system?
Yeah.
For assuming most people wouldn't know what that is. The electoral college was put in by the founders of America to prevent mob rule voting. So basically, you have to kind of win enough states, and then the states vote. So you have to win the state, and then you get the vote of the states. So it's not a popular vote, even though that's why it was one of the things like Clinton running around saying, I won the popular vote, doesn't mean anything, because Trump tactically won the electoral college, which was put in again to keep from the mob rule, which is the more popular candidate can win. Because the idea is you have to appeal to the entire country in a balanced form, instead of just going after the population centers and winning on numbers alone.
But that's the key, isn't it, in a balanced form? Because there wasn't a lot. It didn't seem to me, from an outside perspective, as somebody that doesn't live there, it doesn't seem like there was an awful lot of balance to what was being said at times.
There was more than it seemed.
Yeah.
Again,
yeah.
Media weaponizes messaging for its own agenda.
Yeah.
Look at it this way. You and I can sit here and have a scrum about anything. Sports, politics, race, religion, whatever. The people who really run the world, they're playing the long game. The idea is, hey, I'm sitting on top of the mountain, and in 20 years, and in 50 years, my family's still going to be sitting on top of the mountain.
Yeah.
You guys have your little fight about pick your topic. Fight away. Up here at the top of the mountain, we just want to make sure we're going to stay in control. So we'll feed you and point you and direct you any way we want.
Do you feel like people are becoming more aware of that, though?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
and what will be the outcome, do you think?
Violence, most likely.
Yeah. I mean, that seems to be the answer for a lot of things at the moment.
Well, let me start by saying this is no endorsement. This is strictly a read, like a guy on the pitch making a read of where to shoot the ball, right? Okay, it's like, where's the weakness in the defense? Okay, so let's assume for 300, 400, 700, 1,000 years, there's been a ruling class that has consistently fed people like us a message, which is trust the institution of ... Government, media, your local constable. Trust it, trust it, trust it, trust it, trust it. We know nothing to see here. We've all been there when the cop goes, nothing to see here, move along. Okay. The world doesn't work that way anymore. Any of us can sit here now in an instant on our telephones and do deep dives on, British hegemony in 1642 and how they messed up Africa, or how the Belgians messed up the Congo, or whatever. You can't hide anymore, right? So anybody who can do math, like 1 + 1 = 2, can start to put together pieces and say, okay, number one, the story I was told about the past isn't true.
Yeah.
So what becomes the natural assumption? Is what you're telling me about the present not true? Okay? Now, we've all been in this situation where somebody is lying to us. It can be a friend, it can be a lover, whatever. When you catch somebody in a lie, one of two things happens. They either admit to the lie, which ends the lie and now begins a different process, or they double down on the lie.
Yeah.
Okay? So what do you see happening a lot now? You see a doubling and a tripling and a quadrupling on the lie. Why? Because the people on the other side of this equation don't want to deal with the consequences of the truth.
Yeah.
Perfect example. Let's take a slightly non-political tact, and I don't want to hog the conversation.
No, that's fine.
But just to finish the point, they'll do a poll in America. Like how many people believe in extraterrestrial life or aliens? Consistently 75, 80%, 65%.
Yeah.
Okay, so the majority of Americans, based on experience, empirical evidence, or just intuition, say there's got to be somebody out there.
Yeah.
They might be 2 feet tall and green, but there's got to be somebody, even just
Some of them.
mathematically.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you have the majority of the country in a fairly educated Western country that believes that there is extraterrestrial life, why does the government continue a program which is obviously meant to obscure those facts and things that are worthy of investigation?
Yeah. But do you think that this is an interesting one, because it seems like within the last 50 years, I guess, approximately, the public at large has obviously been inundated with everything from the Invaders back in the day through to the X-Files, which was obviously like a hugely important
I
thing
even
at that
visited
point.
the X-Files set once back in the day, just so you know. I watched them film an episode and hung out with them for a day. It was awesome.
That
About
rules.
like 96 or something,
Awesome.
Yeah. And somewhere in my stuff, I have a watch that David Duchovny gave me. It was the Fox Mulder watch. So
That rules.
I have it in my little stash of memorabilia.
Amazing. Which must be incredible.
Yeah, it's in the list of things like cool stuff I got to do because I was
Yeah.
in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. But it just seems like that everybody's been drip-fed all of this information through fiction, that everybody's so desensitized now that if there was this huge revelation, everybody'd be like, meh, well, we figured that out anyway, which is why I think you have a poll like that, and 75% of the population in the US will be like, well, we believe this is a thing.
Well, maybe that's why it's been drip fed.
Yeah. But it just seems like we're past the point now where anyone's going to be surprised, surely. Obviously, the ramifications against, well, everything, actually. But
I'm sorry, but to go back to the original point.
we just shot off on a whole other...
Yeah, but I think... No, it's all good, but look, how do we get here, right? You said what happens, and I said violence. Okay,
Yeah.
so let me qualify why I said violence again, with no endorsement. I do not believe in public or political violence in any form. It's against my religion. Okay, but when you have a controlling force that refuses to admit the obvious, they are doubling and tripling down on something that eventually is going to come back to bite them. It may be 20 years, it may be 2 months, it may be 200 years, but eventually that schism between the truth and the reality of people on the street is going to come to the head.
Yeah.
So let's look quickly at the last election without getting into politics. What did you have? You had a populist candidate on the right and a populist candidate on the left that probably would have won the primaries if the thing wasn't rigged. That's pretty, at least to most people, that's pretty obvious. So what does that say? The political center is no longer satiating the curiosity and the intuition of the populace.
Yeah.
So it splits in two directions, because if the center's not going to do it for you, you're going to go to the street to look for the guy in the soapbox or the woman on the soapbox who resonates with you, like, hey, at least this person understands what the hell I'm saying.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that stuff going on in the world.
Yeah, and it does seem all to be reaching ahead But then I think that there's other things that I kind of want to go off on so many tangents now. Something, okay, as a sort of stream of consciousness thing, you're saying about things coming to a head and technology being used to almost appease people at large.
Well, that seems to be part of the plan, maybe for just selfish reasons, like it's just capitalism. Like,
Yeah, of course.
as long as I can get you to stay in my digital ghetto, you won't go into somebody else's. So if I got to feed you a bunch of BS to keep you there, even if it's an AI bot telling me that I have to feed you a certain kind of news or a certain kind of clothing to make you think you're in the cool club, well, I'm going to do it because I'm going to keep you in my digital ghetto. I mean,
Well,
that's capitalism.
Yeah, but then that's interesting that you say about like an AI bot, because that's the point I was going to get to. The thing that I feel is coming to a head is obviously like this sort of Kurzweilian idea of the singularity happening in 27, 20, whatever.
Yeah, but the
28
frightening
years.
thing about the Kurzweil thing is that class, and tell me if I'm wrong because I don't have a ton of knowledge about it, is
Me neither, but
they're sort of into the idea of man verging with machine.
Yeah. Well, I mean that was
Not man achieving a Buddha-like sentience that's similar to the Christ and Buddha, but hey, I'm going to use this machine to jack up my whatever.
Yeah. Well, the driving force behind him and his work, isn't it? The fact that his father passed away, and
Right, and life extension technologies. And
yeah,
stuff
but he actually is working on this thing. He's collected absolutely every single, because his father was a musician, wasn't he? He was a composer. He's collected every single piece of music that he'd written, all his scores, all his diaries and journals, all ephemera from his life, because he literally thinks he's going to feed it all into like a giant sausage machine at some point.
Okay, so let's stop.
And then out the end of it is going to be his father again,
Right.
reborn.
Okay, so let's stop there real quick. And this is the point I would make off of that tangent. Are we comfortable enough with ourselves to play God? Because up until this point, at least with the history that we know, there's a selection process that goes beyond our sentience.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how long you're going to live. You don't know how long I'm going to live. There's a bit of kind of odds making in that based on genetics and random whatever. Are you ready to play God? I mean, look around the planet. Are you ready to trust anybody out there with how long you're going to live and what you have access to?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, it's a terrifying
I don't care how
prospect.
sexy Elon Musk's beautiful ideas sound. Even he's sounding the alarm bell that we got to watch this because this thing's going to spin out of control really fast.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I don't care what you say, there's still going to be a human being standing behind all that technology going, yes, no, yes, no, yes, yes, no, no.
Yeah.
And that's frightening.
Yeah, true enough.
Because as we know from history, an individual is always able to be sacrificed against the collective goal of the mob.
Yeah.
A true collectivist vision is we got to get everybody on the same page and we're all going to prosper because we want everyone to eat and we want everyone to, and I'd like to see that happen as too. So that's how this singularity stuff's going to be sold to us.
Yeah.
You're going to live
because it'll
longer,
be-
it's going to be a better planet. I don't buy it. As long as a human being is standing behind a system, I don't trust it'll be a meritocracy.
Yeah.
It's going to get into some other politics.
Well, yeah, I mean, history's kind of proven
that's
that.
exactly what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So are we willing to play God? Are we willing to let an AI system play God instead of God play God? Or are we willing to supplant the rule of the divine because we think we're going to figure it out better?
Yeah. But the thing that I was going to say was...
let's say there's life extension technology, right?
Yeah.
Let's say somebody taps into like a genome or something. And as long as you and I get the spiritual screwdriver genome thing, you and I are going to be guaranteed to live at least 30% longer because it's going to overcome some sort of genetic thing, right?
Yeah.
As long as it's there for everyone, cool. But that ain't going to be the way it's going to work.
No. No, it's like, have you got the money to get on the ark, essentially?
Or,
Yeah.
do you know the guy at the
Figuratively
front door
speaking.
to get in the club? It's
Yeah,
the same.
exactly.
It's the
Yeah.
same shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm saying that as somebody who has access to that world.
Yeah.
I don't want that world. I'd rather live a shorter life knowing that it's not going to be this weird cyberpunk winners and losers and people in high towers. I don't want that to be part of the world. I'd rather perish fighting that world than go along with it as if we're going to end up in some sort of utopian, everyone's going to hold hands and love each other. I mean, we got a lot deeper psychological problems to work out.
Yeah. But then I think that's one of the reasons that art exists, right? And music. Because
it depends.
That's
It depends.
almost like
It depends
the
if you want
counterpoint to it.
Yeah. Well, there are people who, through the force of their.
That sounds a bit.
No,
I know,
it's totally fine. Yeah, it does. But let me take it back to the street art of it all. Now I'm totally lost in the joke.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's totally fine. Where were we?
About art being
oh yeah. No, there are people who are so gifted at what they do that they make a political statement without trying to make a political statement.
Yeah,
it happens. Something sometimes is just so. It's like, is a butterfly political? The answer is no, but can it be? Yes, because there's nothing more beautiful and fragile than a butterfly. So it's an easy point to make. As Mick Jagger once said, when the government was after the Stones, why break a butterfly on a wheel? It was like a famous quote.
Yeah.
It's like, you've got all the power in the world and you want to crush us little butterflies here in our Victorian coats, It's a quote that still applies. But of course now he's Sir, so I guess all is forgiven. Point being is, if you're conscious and you want to weaponize yourself in the bigger fight, that gets into a whole other set of dynamics. And I can go down any rabbit hole you want to get into. That gets into the culture war. That gets into conspiracy theory. That gets into fighting against the machine. And who is the machine? And who can you trust in the machine? And now you're into Orwell territory. Yeah. We can go down any rabbit hole you want to go into on that. Because you're talking about the artist as a weapon.
Yeah.
Or as, Woody Guthrie had on his guitar, this machine kills fascists or whatever.
Yeah.
Because how is it that some guy with a funny voice from the Okies can change the world when he doesn't have the machines and the levers of power?
Because that's the intrinsic part of what makes a person, isn't it? That there is that spark within them.
But isn't the contrarian point of 1984? Think all you want, it's not true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you greater than the mountain? Are you greater than the controlling force? I mean, think about it. How crazy is this, right? We sit in a very civilized country, in a very civilized world, and there are people on this planet right now that are in slavery, they're under political regimes where they literally have no human right. And we sit here comfortably sipping our tea, and we in Western countries are okay with that. That's how crazy our world is.
Yeah.
Is that we can sit here comfortably and sort of go about our business and moan and whinge about our first world problems when there are people in this world who are still living like it's 1642. That's fucking nuts.
Yeah.
That is nuts. That shows you how the human mind works. We so can't deal with the horror of it, we don't deal with it at all. We don't deal with it at all. We don't actually let it enter our consciousness because it's so horrifying. And it shows how little power we have. So, back to the other point. If you want to weaponize yourself as an artist in the public sphere, you get into sort of epic forces. In essence, David versus Goliath. Yeah. Is my little song or, your drawing or whatever, is that as powerful or more powerful than this weaponized culture? And it is a weaponized culture. And it goes way back. Read history. Read about the Florentines. Read about the Tsar. It's not like somebody invented this 20 years ago.
Yeah.
This is just the latest version of media plus bullying plus thought police plus flag plus whatever. And then you have to start making really weird choices. Like in America, you now got people saying anthem is racist, flag is racist. It's like now we have to choose so we're going to choose a different symbol without doing a self-review, as if somehow getting rid of an object is going to sort of magically atone for our sins.
Yeah. But then, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, man. It's a funny one because I think you're saying about the idea of symbols and what they represent, that's everything, isn't it? I mean, That's how everything is governed.
It is if you let it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think.
Like,
But
what is
as
the-
we're saying, more people are becoming more and more aware of.
Yeah, but freedom is, in the Buddhist tradition, freedom is not being attached and not being attached to not being attached. You understand?
Yeah.
True freedom is, I really don't care. Hey, you want to do that thing? Great. And I don't care if you do it or you don't do it. It doesn't mean anything to me. That's true freedom.
Yeah.
So what most people do is they convince themselves that freedom is the ignorance of something or the letting go of something or the non-opposition to something. That's just a different form of enslavement.
Yeah.
True freedom is the libertarian ideal of we're all governed by the same laws. We generally agree. You go about your business. I'll go about mine. Let's live in peace. And together we'll form a culture that will be 1 + 1 = 400 or something. That's the true libertarian ideal.
Yeah.
So again, we have cultures that are being weaponized to convince us that that's what we're doing while we're doing the exact opposite.
But
Because I'm saying we're reaching a critical mass here where the information age is in contrast to the illusion that we've convinced ourselves of. Okay? That doesn't mean destroy Western civilization. We don't need the 22-year-old punk, Mohawk haircut version of anarchy. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Why? Because we like to use the toilet.
Yeah.
I'd rather not defecate in the street. You understand? Like we can do this in a non-violent, effective way. But in order to do that, we must self-examine ourselves and our cultures and be accountable.
But do you think, going back to it, I know I feel like I keep going back to it, but do you think art has a part in that, or do you feel that now that it's so been commodified that now become another means of
No, it's
enabling those rules?
Sorry
to
to change your language. It's been co-opted.
Yeah. Okay.
Think about this. How many artists in the world, let's speak about America because it's something I know well. How many artists in America stand for the machine? It's remarkable.
Yeah.
I've never seen so many people in the arts stand for the party line. That's frightening.
Yeah.
Because they, of all people, who have the access to the greater information should know that the system shouldn't be trusted so comfortably. Why are they going to bat so hard for a system that isn't even serving their...
But then isn't that just a case of somebody settling for the lesser of two evils in
No,
that situation?
no, they've convinced themselves of a hypnotic state.
Convince themselves of it or just succumb to it?
Both. Or
Yeah.
if I had to pick, I'd pick your answer.
Yeah. I think that's it.
So you don't have to tear the machine down, but you have to start by what movie am I in and do I want to take part in this hypnotic state?
See, this is funny because I love to sit on the internet and look at things like Vigilant Citizen and those kind of sites where like an artist will put out their new video and somebody has sat there and dissected the entire thing as if it were like an esoteric checklist, right? And then I really enjoy that, just going through those things, because you then get the people going, you guys are fucking crazy. This is all bullshit. What are you talking about? But then you also, it's almost like it's, I don't know, like double bluffs, to the point where now there's become like a language within certain forms of arts, especially visual art, when representing music, videos, etc. That there's this whole lexicon of symbols that get used because they know it'll create chatter. Do you know what I mean? In the sense that I think there are people that truly use certain symbols within their work, and that's not just for nefarious means. I don't mean that in a sense.
Yeah, but mastery is control but not suppression.
Yeah.
Picasso was in complete command of his symbolism and his form, but he's not laying on top of you.
Yeah.
The language of modern propaganda is demanding you submit, which is why it's referred to as a culture war.
Yeah.
Why is culture as a battlefront so critical in the information age, because it's the meta narrative that is driving the story. It is no longer the controllers driving the story.
But the
So
story
the
is still the
controllers are
same.
just the controller. True, but the controllers are entering the scrum because they can't control the scrum anymore.
Yeah.
So it's inevitable that in a deconstructing society, which you can argue in sort of a general way that Western society is deconstructing itself, and hopefully will reconstruct itself in a non-violent way. But in that deconstruction, people start looking under rugs that they never looked under before, because suddenly, and you start seeing this the deeper meta symbolism in a Stanley Kubrick film or something. You start saying, okay, he was trying to warn me of something, but he was doing it in a way that would kept him safe. And so I would argue that sentient awake artists are engaging in language that only people who can truly see and hear are hearing and seeing, and they're willing to do it at the expense of their own ambitions.
Do you see that?
Let's put it this way: there is a secret, silent war going on in the world.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I don't.
To what aim? Right.
Well, the same as it's always been, which is the
Exactly.
yoke.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So in that way, if
But
you're
then-
a true troubadour, you are in the lineage of Jesus Christ and Gandhi. You're not in the true lineage of, I don't know, Scott Joplin. I mean, that's a different trip. So that's why I'm saying, do you want to weaponize yourself to try to stop the violence?
At what point did you realize that was something that you wanted to do?
I think I knew it early on, but I was able to kind of micromanage it in my brain as sort of like against the record label or against MTV or against the hypocrisy of the New York, intelligentsia.
Smaller symbols.
Well, eventually I
bigger
realized
pictures.
as I went
Yeah.
up the chain, I realized that they were connected to bigger ogres, which were connected to bigger ogres, which were connected to bigger ogres.
Yeah. So when was that for you, do you think? And how do you think you consciously then started applying that into what you were doing?
Well, I mean, at the risk of sounding pompous, I think an artist doesn't understand that translation. They just do it.
Yeah, I agree.
And people,
as we were
and
saying the other
if
day.
you're skilled, people resonate to it.
Yeah.
I mean, Warhol was a provocateur at a very, very meta, deep level in a way that's still being felt.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the ultimate prankster. I mean, he pulled a good one on everyone, but he did it with consciousness. It wasn't like an accident.
Yeah.
That's why it's like he kind of played this weird, clueless character on purpose. It was part of what he was doing. The times dictate the position too.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that I would, from an optimistic viewpoint, would like to think would be the benefit of times when they become truly, truly crushing, is that as things get squeezed tighter and tighter, the great art and the great music, the great writing, gets squeezed out as a result and a reaction.
Yeah, but
to that.
oftentimes the culture isn't able to see that until much, much later.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, let's use the uncomfortable analogy of the Weimar Republic going into the Nazis.
Yeah.
There were Weimar Republic artists like Otto Diess
Yeah.
and Bertolt Brecht who were ringing all the fucking alarm bells, and
Yeah.
nobody heard them, or they blew right past them.
Well, people did
Now we can go back and
I think people did hear them, and I think that's why they then started having exhibitions of degenerate art.
Sure.
Because ridicule and mocking is the greatest form of censorship.
So stop time for a second.
Yeah.
They didn't stop what was coming. Was their risk worth it?
Yeah, I think so. You'd like
I
to
would
think
agree.
so, right?
Well, if your argument is between you and God, the answer is easy.
Yeah.
If the answer is between you and whoever's trying to put a boot in the back of your fucking head, the answer is no.
Yeah. Yeah, it almost seems when you look at things in this sense, right? If we were to view it that there is this two opposing forces, and one has all the resource, the money and the power, and the other side of which has creativity and things that look very
We have to be
imposing.
you have to be on the street to understand the street.
Yeah, but I think those things are really, really powerful in in all conflict of those types.
Well, rightly so. But true balance is like, the classic thing. It's like you sit to somebody on the street and talk about anarchy, right back to my bad analogy. It's like, I don't mind traffic laws. I don't mind the red light. I don't mind a stop sign. I don't mind a speeding ticket. Like, I can live in a civilized society.
Yeah.
That's not the issue. The issue is the civilized society applied equally to everyone in the way that is presented to us via propaganda.
Yeah.
And most thinking people go, yeah, that's a laugh. That's not really true. We've all seen people get off because they have money or, whatever. I mean, that goes back to Roman times. It's not a new story.
Yeah.
But we're entering an age now where, because the populace has access to so much information that rings their intuition, that tells them something's funky here.
Yeah.
And just like a Roman ruler, the controlling class keeps waving off that messaging like, oh, nothing to see here, nothing to see here. Like, I'm an observer from the other side of the pond, but I saw much of the press leading up to the Brexit vote. And the Brexit vote was treated like, yeah, right, not going to happen.
Of course.
Not going to happen.
But
Oops, by the way, it happened.
Yeah.
So how were they so off in their read?
Because, as you say, about tech companies feeding people certain algorithms.
The digital ghetto.
Yeah, it's the echo chamber keeps getting bandied around.
Like somebody
now.
I was working with yesterday said they don't know one person in their social circle that voted for Brexit.
Yeah.
Not one person.
Of course. Well, that's because you choose to hang out with people that you'd like to think are like-minded people. You're not going to hang out with people with totally opposing views.
What's what they call confirmation bias.
Yeah, of course.
So, where are we going with all this, right?
I don't know. We should get back onto...
No, it's fine. Because I want to...
Where are we at, actually?
No, it's fine. I want to hit one more spot on it.
Go on.
Because it's a controversial thing to say, right? Where does this all go? And my answer has been recently violence. Okay, so we've said all these things, but let's go back to the simplest part of the narrative. Why would there be violence if there's a sort of kind of general awakening in the populace that takes it closer to something that resembles the truth? It's because they've been lied to. And nobody likes to be lied to. Okay, and then you start doing this simple math. And you don't see an institutional reaction. Let's call it the coming populist, nationalistic, whatever those urges are that are sort of rumbling, politically, socially. Those things have been happening for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
The scary part is you don't see the ruling classes of the world going, okay, let's click over to plan B. We need to sort of slow this down and figure out something that continues the rule of law, establishes, let's call it the most peaceful path forward, why everybody at the table, including the capitalist society that has a lot of money invested in factories and stuff, let's kind of find a new balance that equates an awakened populace that doesn't sort of just believe propaganda versus the concerns of the class that maybe takes on a lot more risk than the guy with a $40K a year job or something, right? There is a balancing point. I believe in capitalism, so I'm not anti-capitalist.
Yeah.
You don't see that reaction coming. You see a deafening roar of propaganda.
But then I think it's an inbuilt thing, isn't it? That's just, and I don't mean this as an endorsement, but that is just the way it's always been. And I think people look at it and use that as their means for acceptance.
Right, but I guess what I'm trying to say and posit in so many different ways is we might, for the first time in human existence that we know of, be reaching a critical mass where that no longer is effective.
Yeah.
So the silver lining would be, before it gets to this wacky place, there will be a different tact taken. If we look at just what happened in Catalonia, I mean, clubbing women in the streets because they want an illegal vote. I don't know enough about the specifics, but I mean, you see the images. That's all you need to see.
Yeah.
I've been to Catalonia, you know what I mean? I went down and sat on the coast and had my funny soup, you know what I mean? I don't remember thinking this is like a place on the edge of revolution.
Of course. But then those places never do seem that way until that's upon them.
But again, in 2017, it's like why are we still having this? It's because we refuse to be truly accountable to the sort of shadow in our own systems. Like, why is America sort of stuck, because we've yet to elect a woman president, why are we stuck in this kind of paternalistic, we need dad?
Yeah.
Like, even recently, I'll give you a perfect example that's a little less political. We've had these big hurricanes, and now we've had this horrible shooting. You see these headlines where it's like, President comforts. Now, I'm sure it's comforting to people in those situations, like, hey, the president cares, resources are going to be applied, we're not going to be forgotten, this is a concern of the national government. I mean, that's valuable. But in the underbelly of it is still this idea of the dad's got to come.
Yeah.
Dad's got to come and
show
say,
face.
Yeah, it's like there's still a sort of weird psychological need in the American psyche to have dads still kind of say,
it's okay.
It's going to be okay. Like, maybe we need to get past we need a guy to tell us it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to figure out how to be okay, so then that conversation is different.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Because then the political class learns that it spends more time appeasing and comforting and cajoling than it does talking about real solutions that are going to affect the common person on the street. That's what foments this unease. Because if it becomes weaponized, which is my favorite word of the week, if it becomes weaponized, then at some point you're thinking, this isn't real. When is a photo op not a photo op? You see the guy loading the boxes in the truck, or is that important symbolically, or is it just a photo op? You get into that weird thing where it's like nobody believes the symbolism anymore.
Yeah.
And you don't, I guess what I'm trying to dig at, you don't see the symbols being replaced. You see the symbols on the street level being replaced. And then suddenly it's like, it's okay to wave the communist flag in America, like that's cool. Communism responsible for 100 million dead in the 20th century, that's cool. But you can't wave the American flag. It's like it gets into weird, like, upside down world stuff.
Yeah.
So to your point, maybe what the artist can do is create new symbols.
Yeah, but then I think that's what music and art are, though, right?
Well, that's the language. That's the dream language.
Yeah. Well, as we were saying,
why are people crying at the end of the Roger Waters concert when the pyramid comes up?
Yeah.
Like, what is it about the pyramid? Is it because it's Dark Side of the Moon, or it's we all understand the pyramid in some sort of quasi DNA history or something?
Deep in your reptilian brain.
Yeah, exactly. Back when we were slaves.
Yeah. But then when we were talking yesterday, and we touched on it briefly, and I was saying that I believe that great artists are more than the sum of themselves, right?
Well, history proves that.
Yeah. And that their works obviously then live on, but I believe that I always feel weird saying this, but we discussed it briefly yesterday anyway, that you're channeling things, right?
I feel, yeah.
Yeah. So surely that is the...
Well, for me, that's why it has a spiritual component.
Yeah. A
force greater than myself, outside myself, is imbuing me with something that I don't possess or carry, that I'm able to translate I'm more of a translator than I am a scribe.
Yeah.
So somebody's speaking alien in my ear, and I'm spitting it out, in broken English.
Yeah, alien's a good way of putting it. It's funny, I did one of these with Alan Moore, and he said a great thing, which I'll never be able to repeat verbatim and quote properly, but he said that great artists are like windows, and that they should work on themselves to make themselves as wide and as big and as clean as possible to let as much light through, but never fall into the trap of looking down on the floor and seeing the sun shining through on the floor and go, look at what I made. Aren't I great?
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well,
he said it in a lot more profound manner. That was a very
it's beautiful,
ham-fisted...
but also the world projects on you that you are the sun, you are the window, and you are the light on the floor, and that's where the artist gets lost.
Yeah.
It's like, I made that.
Yeah. It's,
me.
Of course.
That's what we do in wrestling. When somebody talks about them, say me.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of me.
It's a tough one, though, to be able to see through that and realize, I mean, that's a truly great form of enlightenment, isn't it? To be able to make these things and realize that you are a means of making them rather than the source of making them. But then I think that's a beautiful thing in the sense that that is our way of fighting back against things that are of a lot darker nature, like we've been discussing for the last.
But those things can only exist if we tolerate them, you see. They're reflections of our own unclaimed shadow.
But do you think
it's easier to rail at Pharaoh than it is to say, why do we need Pharaoh?
Okay. But, so hypothetically speaking, if we're to say that beautiful art is coming from a source,
okay,
right? From this side.
As is nature.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What makes the plants grow?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's coming through this side, and we do our best to facilitate those things happening. Would you agree then that there are other things coming from another direction, which is what's making things so shitty? Or is that getting truly into the realms of...
Well, that's physics.
Yeah. Okay, that's a very diplomatic way of putting it, right?
No, I sometimes refer to it as satanic energy.
Yeah.
You know, there's some talk on the web sometimes that pop stars are in league with Satan, which is funny because it used to be Judas Priest was in league with Satan. Now it's pop stars.
Yeah.
Okay.
You reach a wider audience that way in the current climate.
Perfect. Satan's going to the hoop strong. Okay, but here's the thing. If we're talking about the realm of symbiology, pop stars, through their own feckless ambition, are engaging in a form of Luciferian power occultism by attaching themselves to symbols which maybe they don't personally believe in.
Or understand.
Well,
this is what I was trying to say earlier.
Okay, perfect. But either through their ignorance or their own power lust, they're bringing forward forces that have deeper codes and, you know, inner revelations than they were. Basically they're playing with funky dark fire that they probably don't even understand they're playing. And because they don't understand the principle of the window and the light coming through, they think it's about them. Yeah. They think the hero worship is about them.
Yeah.
I read this thing.
Do you think it's... Would you actually say that it was Luciferian then? Because in a sense...
That's the word I would use.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I believe it has a spiritual dimension.
I do as well, but I think Luciferian that wouldn't be necessarily the word I'd use. I just think that...
Beelzebub?
Yeah. Okay. It just seems like that archetype has been painted into a dark corner by people for certain means, right?
I'm not attached to it.
Yeah.
To me, positive, negative, each teaches us something properly balanced. Things live on.
Yeah.
You try to supersede duality and get to singularity, but not with a fucking chip in your brain that somebody up on the West Coast in America made. But you go to the actual Godhead, which you already have the technology for.
Yeah.
So you want to go down that road? Enjoy. Yeah. Enjoy the world that you will make.
So here's the thing. So I started watching the film earlier, which was a nightmare for me because I was trying to watch it on a fucking phone, which had no signal.
Oh, my pillbox?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool, yeah.
And immediately, as soon as it started, visually, I thought they were cymatic images. Because the kaleidoscopic images, I thought, cymatics?
No.
Okay, so that if certain frequencies, things vibrate in a certain manner.
Oh, yeah,
right?
okay, yeah.
So you must have seen that. Well, I say you must have. I'm just where a guy will have a tin plate and he'll put it on top of a speaker and he'll throw sand on it.
Yeah. I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of guys with synthesis does that, and I've of course dabbled in synthesis, so I get it.
Yeah. I thought it was that, which I thought was an interesting...
Yeah, my partner in the thing was more on about it than I was.
Okay.
I'm sort of still on the fence. I don't mean it critically. It's like... Because I was more after, like, obvious narrative form. But she's also a great artist, so she's attracted to those things unconsciously, so I trust her to language it in a way that's compatible with mine, and that's why we're a good team.
Yeah.
But even as I'm part author, I don't totally understand her attraction to it. But it's interesting you got that from it.
Yeah, that was the first thing I thought. That's immediately. Yeah.
Cool. That makes me appreciate it because you know what I mean? I'm sitting there thinking, it should have been better because we should have done this, and this. It's technical stuff.
The idea of sound resonating and creating
Yeah, it's
form.
fantastic. Yeah.
In the beginning was the word.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. That's why Jimi Hendrix was good at what he did.
Yeah.
He knew exactly what frequency to hit when and where to hit you with it.
But then there was a lot of psychedelics involved as well, which is maybe
that gave him access to the
Yeah.
to the technology and to the information that he needed.
Yeah.
And don't forget, he was doing it at a time where
that wasn't me being disparaging.
no,
by the
no,
way.
no, I don't
Far
take
from
it. No, no, I'm saying is sometimes it's important to put things in proper historical context. It's easy for us to sit here and say somebody 50 years ago, let's say, language something in a perfect. Sometimes you have to remember how bold that was within the moment.
Yeah.
Like he's 100 years ahead of his time. He's not even 20.
Yeah. Yeah, it's mind blowing when you actually sit and look at it that way.
I was going to say one thing just to cycle back on a point.
Okay.
Because it illustrates something that I think is very valuable. It was somebody talking about youth and the lust for beauty, and every generation has its it's Marilyn Monroe's and whatever. Pick your current version of it.
Kim Kardashian.
I was going to name names. What the person said was quite interesting, and it was from years ago. The quote, it was like, "It's amazing how much energy is spent in pursuit of the goddess as a symbol, but the minute they lose their life and they're in the ground, nobody cares."
Yeah.
So what that does is it distinguishes that the ephemeral and temporal part of beauty, which fades for all of us, if we've been lucky enough to be blessed, is not the thing that's the true attractor. Because once the true animating force is withdrawn, well, here's your body.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, right?
Yeah.
In essence, it points us back to what truly matters. So, okay, here's a good way to end. One of my heroes. Love is all you need. Okay, it couldn't be simpler and it couldn't be truer. So until we're ready to have a true conversation in this world about love and the sacrifice of love and the true responsibility in love, we're going to do everything to avoid the subject. And violence is a really, really easy option to avoid. Gee, I feel vulnerable. How do I know I'm not going to get left behind?
Yeah.
Where's my pitchfork?
Great. Thank you. Thanks, man.
We do this every day. We're gonna end up in singularity together.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Swim Podcast episode number 20. My thanks to Billy for the conversation, but also to Andy and Hannah for helping sort all this out. You can find Billy on Twitter, which is @Billy. Amazing. How good's that? Instagram, you can find stuff at Ogilala, which is Ogilala, and also at Smashing Pumpkins. I can be found at Daniel P. Carter on Instagram and Twitter. The podcast is at Swim Podcast on both. The William Patrick Corgan album Ogilala is out now. It should be bought rather than streamed if possible. He's going to be touring the album in the US throughout October and November. And if you remember to subscribe on Acast and iTunes, please leave a 5-star review on there if you were digging it. And